Welcome to Life Talk, a production of Maranatha Ministries, with Shoshannah Frank Roush, a ministry director at Maranatha, and Jene Gardner, president of Phoenix Rising Counseling Services. These lifelong friends discuss the spiritual and emotional challenges that face us all. Using biblical characters and personalities, they help us see that we are not alone in any of our emotions, positive or negative, and show us how we can be more than conquerors. If you'd like to speak with either Shoshannah or Jene, you can reach them by email at lifetalk@mmchurch.com. And now be blessed by today's presentation of Life Talk.
Hey, how are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing well.
Good.
So first I want to thank Ashley because you were on vacation last week.
I know,
So
yes.
I
And I
know,
watched it. I watched it while I was on
yeah?
vacation, and you guys did awesome. I was like, man, she needs to come on again because there were so many things that I probably would have asked her, like in the moment too, of just like, I thought it was awesome. It was.
Oh yeah. So that's actually funny that you say that because I've actually had a couple of people message me and ask me if the three of us can.
Oh yeah.
You can ask away at that point.
Yeah, we should. We definitely need to set that up.
Yeah, so I'm gonna open up with our scripture, which we're gonna do Proverbs 23:15, which says, "My child, if your heart is wise, then my heart too will be happy." Mm-hmm. And it just seemed fitting that you went away on vacation last week, mm-hmm. and you have 4 kids. So how was vacay?
So vacation was phenomenal. Anytime you can get away from cold weather and like get sunshine, like in the middle of winter in New York is always fascinating. But we went to Florida. My kids have never been to Florida. And so it was really nice. We had a great place, great view, great sunsets. It was awesome. And it really kind of sparked this like thought in me too of, like as a parent, even though, my youngest just turned 10 and then my oldest will be 15 next month, of like looking at when I was growing up and like memories that we would make or family vacations, like trips that we would do, and just wanting to make sure that every time that we do these type of events as a family, and we do like one a year, that it's stuff that my kids will talk about all year long of like, oh, remember that time, and like, little things that like memories or things that made us laugh, or, games or just walks on the beach or different things that, we would do. And I love that as a parent. It's like really rewarding to say like, hey, I'm giving these like moments and these experiences to my kids. Oh, yeah. And I don't know about you, but like, I want to ask you about like, what's your favorite like family vacation? Like I was thinking about what was my favorite family vacation like growing up. And I honestly can say I didn't have a favorite one because they all were lousy. Like literally all of them were, because my dad would like take us, my dad's this huge like Civil War like guru. Yeah. And so literally we would be in this car and we would go to Gettysburg, and and instead of doing like the tour guide, like where you could go with a group of people and like, do the whole thing. Guide? Yeah, he was the guy that he would go buy this, and it was a cassette tape. So he like puts it in the car, and we had to like stop at each one of these battlegrounds or whatever. And he's like, we're listening to this audio tape, and it's so boring. Now I probably would be like, oh, that's really interesting. But then I'm like, this is the worst. Like we're sitting in a car. We drove here to sit in the car more. Like it was just terrible. Or like go to.
Let me guess. He woke you guys up at 6:30 every morning, right?
Oh, you know it. Like he's ready to go, and then at the same time, he's like, let's go to Cooperstown, which I don't like baseball. It's not one of my favorite things. So as a kid, it just wasn't enjoyable. So a lot of it would be about like traveling or, doing something war related or baseball. Yeah. But I mean, still, it's a memory, so none of them really were.
You're laughing about it now, and you're still talking about it. So
yeah, that's true. Right? Like it made some type of an impression on me on some level.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I mean, don't tell my dad I thought they were lousy. But like honestly, like we didn't do the fun like family like beach vacations or anything like that. But but it's still like there was a lot that came out of it, of just that family time. And so I'm kind of interested, what is your favorite family vacation that you went on?
So my family, we did the same thing every single year. So we vacationed in New Hampshire.
Oh, and,
Yeah, we did that. I'm pretty sure my parents started doing that before I was even born.
Mm-hmm.
And so every year we went to the same area. And growing up in a pastor's home, you know how it is, and you're constantly giving of yourself, and just you talking about vacation stuff kind of brought up how important it is to get away from the daily grind,
Yep.
and take a step back and remove yourself kind of from reality. I think,
Yeah.
times are much quicker now than when we were younger, especially now as adults,
Right.
where you're working. It feels like Groundhog Day.
Yeah,
You work like a dog. You work 12, 13-hour days, come home, take care of kids, put them to bed, wake up, do the same exact thing over and over and over again. And, and I mean, it even says in Genesis that after God created the earth, he took a step back and rested.
Exactly.
So it is so needed, to rest and kind of regroup with your family. But I mean, we went to New Hampshire every year, and we did kind of the same stuff every year. I mean, you've gone to New Hampshire with me. It's outdoorsy hiking. There is no beach. We never have been a beach family. So we didn't do beaches. We didn't do anything like that. But it's funny because there's a road that we always took when I was younger. And I never knew what road it was, but I always knew that it was my favorite road because I knew that when we drove on this road, we were going on vacation. And that's really the only time we ever drove on this one road, because that was, we were going up north. And to this day, I'm going to be 40 in August. And to this day, that is my favorite road. And I still get those nostalgic
nice
feelings of just like my little heart racing. Like, it's just this excitement.
Right.
And to this day, it's still, I still love driving on that road. And for anyone in the area that wants to know, it's Aqueduct Road that brings you over to 146. It's just, yeah. And so we
brings those memories up.
Yeah, we did kind of the same thing every year.
Yeah, and I don't know. I mean, I'm sure that you can probably relate, and anybody that is a parent and like doing those things, that it is when you were mentioning like, hey, it's important to kind of get out of the daily grind and do things. Like you almost forget like the sense of humor that some of your kids have, and just having like conversations with them that are like more than, oh, how was school? Did you do your homework? Did you practice your instruments? So and actually having like deep and meaningful conversations with them just about life. And I'm a crier when I think about like my kids in terms of, oh my God, they're getting so big, and I was thinking about Abby, like my oldest, like she's going to be 15 and she's going into 10th grade. So I'm thinking I only really have like maybe 3 more family vacations before she goes off to college, like where she's probably not going to want to be here. So then of course, then I'm like, oh my goodness, like 3 more, so there's like trying to make sure you're planning these things. And when you look at it like that, it's almost, I want to make sure that we have these memories and these moments, together. Right. So that, and I actually even did a little bit of like research on it, that when you spend quality family time where you're unplugging from, phones and electronics, and you're just actually like pulling a board game out and you're having conversations, that the goal is to actually like increase protective factors for your family and decrease risk factors. And any time that you spend doing that, whether it's like every Friday, like our family growing up used to do like family prayer, like, so we would all have to come down into the living room and like we would pray, and like, we would maybe play a game or do something. But there was that schedule, that routine, that comfortability in doing that, that it actually is like, it taught me so much about the importance of not only just developing a prayer life and spiritual disciplines, but also just the importance of like being together as a family when we are so busy. And when you raise those, that's like decreasing risk factors, that studies aren't even like, there are secular studies have shown that people that go to church together as a family, that have regular meals, like where you're all sitting at a table and you're eating together, which is lost on a lot of families, unfortunately, that don't do that anymore. And you're making those memories, that you are increasing those protective factors and reducing risk factors for them, like getting engaged in high risk, behaviors at a young age, and any of that. So, and I'm thinking as a parent, like we might take it for granted because we were raised sitting around a table and eating. But there are people that are coming into church and just kind of like, no, they're like, they've never done that before. My kids have kids that come over to our house. And when we sit down to eat, even when we're ordering pizza or something, they're like, wow, you guys all sit around here and you eat. Like they're all grabbing their food and going to their room, or someone's going into the living room or the den.
It's funny because I had the same thing when we were growing up. And most of our friends preferred to come to our house on, on our Friday night family nights, because it was games, it was pizza night, it was, and my parents were super involved.
Yeah.
But it's funny because you're talking about, here both of you and I are talking about our backgrounds and kind of what has shaped us now. You went on family vacations, you take your kids on family vacations. And I remember there was one time there was a gentleman that was talking to me, and he had mentioned that everyone keeps saying that, God loves you like a good father, and he said that, I can't serve God because my father is a terrible example. And I can't imagine, what a good father's love is like. And, I got to thinking about it as you were talking. Is that, you can, like my mother, I'm going to use my mom as an example, and same with my dad. We didn't really have grandparents growing up. We didn't have real extended families. My mother spent a good portion of her childhood in an orphanage. She didn't have an active mom. We weren't close to my grandmother when she grew up and started, a semi relationship with her. But because of that, it pushed my mom to want to give us kids that family life. Right. And that's why we had the family life we had. And that's why my parents were so involved. Because even my dad came from, listen, he had, in the sense of the word, if you looked at him, he had a mother and a father, that were still together. He had siblings. But it was, it was a dysfunctional mother, father, sibling relationship, and so we didn't really have a whole lot of that growing. They didn't have, because they both came from dysfunctional families. We didn't have the extended family. So my parents created that family nucleus that we're going to have family time. We're going to sit down and play games. We're going to be, my parents, I can say 40 years old, my parents have never missed a sports event of mine, growing up playing sports. And so a scripture that came to mind earlier when you and I were talking was Proverbs 17:6, that says, children's children are a crown to the aged. So grandchildren are a crown to their grandparents, and parents are the pride of their children. And so when it comes to Ritz, I make sure that his grandparents are involved in pretty much everything that he's doing, so that he has that experience, because that's something that I didn't have. And so you see, you have to be the one that kind of breaks that, instead of using, well, my childhood was like this. It's kind of, you're in counseling. It's kind of like the two kids where they had an alcoholic father. One was an alcoholic because his father was an alcoholic, and one is sober and a good family man because his dad was an alcoholic.
Right.
Very and true. So get into the scriptures, because you can choose which road you take, which path you take.
Absolutely.
So I don't know why I just went off on that tangent.
No, I think it was good, because what you had kind of started out saying was that just because you didn't have those memories, or you didn't have like a present father figure or mother figure, that you have the right to say, okay, that just because this is where I came from doesn't mean I have to continue that pattern, that I can make that choice to have family time and do those things. And in that study that I was reading show about like the benefits of family time, it was also talking about how when you have regular scheduled family time, that it actually helps your kids do better in school. Like they're better academically, because you're probably going to be the parent that's going to make sure they are doing their homework and going to be there to like assist with the homework. The other one was that it helps them to have better communication style and just better communication skills in general, because it's when you're sitting there spending time with each other and you're not just glued on the phone, you're actually asking about how are you feeling? Like, how was this? How are your friends? You're having those conversations where it's encouraging your kids to want to talk to you about things, that maybe they will feel more comfortable, to have those moments. And
I think you're laying the foundation as well.
Yes.
We mentioned this, I don't remember what week, but the scripture in Proverbs that says, train up a child in the way they should go, and they won't depart from it.
Yeah.
And, I'm a big proponent on that's not just biblical. That's not just training up your child biblically and they won't depart from it. That is, if you're teaching your child to live this way at home and this way out in the world, or you're teaching your child to, that's going to be what they revert back to. Like you said, that's their safety. They're going to revert back to how they were taught. So that train up a child in the way they should go doesn't just mean train them up in God.
Right.
That means train them up to, that's what we want it to be. We want to be laying that biblical foundation. But if you're teaching them to be one way at home and a different way out in the world, that's how they're going to be when they're adults.
Yep. Absolutely. Yeah. And, I just recently started like a couple weeks ago, like just doing, like devotions with my kids.
Mm-hmm.
Like, so we do it like once a week. And I would recommend, I wish I meant to grab it off my bookshelf, but it's a book that actually the Pentecostal Publishing House, they put out different series. So there's some on just like, holiness, like modesty. And then there's like some just on purity and different things. And so as my kids are getting older, I just wanted to have that conversation. We should be talking about those things in our house, like just to say, hey, this is what, what we stand for. And part of that in this book that we are doing is where it talks about in Deuteronomy, where it says, hey, we need to talk about these things when you're in your house, when you're going out and, having those conversations. That in Deuteronomy, it was saying we should train up our children. We need to be doing those things, talking about the things of God, and not just like in one place, just like what you're saying is like, hey, that is like intertwined in every aspect of our life. Because if we don't teach them, we need to be the loudest voice. Our parent, your home, your parent, your parent voice needs to be louder than like that voice that they're going to hear, because they're hearing it and they're seeing it every day. And I think that like just having that peace and that calm of like, I always pray that like, God, I want my home to be a sanctuary, like a safe haven, for my kids, like where they can know that no matter what age they are, that they can like feel safe when they're in their home, like at home with their family. Because a lot of kids don't have that, and I think that sometimes, and so I love when my kids are like, hey, can I have this person over? Can I do this? Because I'm hoping that will be, that they can feel it too, like other kids that maybe aren't raised the same way can feel that. So I guess I just want to like encourage like that family bonding time and just doing those things, just as a family, because it's going to strengthen that connection that you would have, with your family. So
absolutely.
I just think I just
wanted to kind of go off what you said too about being your house being your safe haven and that safe place for your kids to come, including their friends. Because listen, we all know that this world is broken, and a lot of these kids are growing up in that brokenness and that instability, and they find that stability in some of our kids' homes, and but one of the things that my parents really raised us with, and you had touched on it, was making sure that you're talking to them and having family nights. And, we were raised without a TV, so we didn't have all that distraction. We had game nights and we listened to records together but, in that relationship, in that building of that relationship, my dad had always said, it doesn't matter what kind of trouble you get into, you can call me.
Yeah.
And that did happen. I walked away from God at one point, and he was my call. If I was out and my friends were drunk and someone was going to be driving, he was the phone call I made, whether he was going to be disappointed or not. I knew that he was there for me. And that's what we're building with our children, these little vacations, and getting them away from the hustle and the bustle of this world, and getting them refocused. I think it's great. It's what everyone needs.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Sho. I love this conversation. I think it was
absolutely. And send me the title. Text me the title of that book, and I'll put in the description for everybody if anyone wants to order it.
Yeah, that'll be great. Yeah.
All right. Thank you. This was a great talk. Welcome back from vacation, and we'll see everyone next week.
All right.
God bless.